Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. Today I am showing you a fun, simple birthday card using my favorite things products. So the first stamps that we're going to be using is the Bitty Birthday Wishes and then Number Jumble, which I just love this background stamp. We're going to be using the Happy Birthday block die and also the Happy Birthday Brights paper. So I wanted to make just a simple, quick card that I can make one evening. I was making a birthday card for a coworker and friend, and I decided that I wanted to use the jumble as a background and then cut out the happy birthday. So this is no stamping with the exception of the background and the little sentiment, but no coloring, I guess would be a better way to say it. So I'm going to start out by stamping the Number Jumble background stamp. And I am going to use my Misti for this. If you don't have a Misti, you certainly can just ink this up and then put your paper on top of it, flip it over on top of your paper. I just feel more comfortable using my Misti because I tend to mess up a lot. So I decided I wanted to heat emboss this on black cardstock. So I am using the Hero Arts black cardstock. I can't remember the exact name. I'll have all the products listed below. But this is by far my favorite black cardstock. It is a true, deep, dark black cardstock. And if you are interested in it, I highly suggest you check out Hero Arts because it does sell out quick. They restock it, but it does sell out pretty fast. So I did have to remove my pad from my Misti. I actually have a foam pad instead of the paper because this is a rubber stamp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my anti-static powder bag, and that is liquid watercolor that has got on it. If you've watched my videos, you know that my powder bag has some orange on it. It still works fine. And I'm going to ink up my stamp with some clear embossing ink. And this embossing ink is from Brutus Monroe. And I love this embossing ink. It stays wet for a while, so it gives you time to get your embossing powder together and things like that. And I just find it gives some of the best coverage for embossing. And I am going to be embossing using a white embossing powder. I'm going to use Brutus Monroe Alabaster White. It is my favorite white. It is very bright and crisp. I've tried several whites. I have a bunch in my drawer, and this is my favorite one. So you can see I've stamped out. It's kind of hard to see. I'm tipping it a little bit, but I have stamped out. And it kind of gives the paper a little bit of a different color if you've never heat embossed and put the embossing ink onto a darker cardstock. There you can see it better. And the center I'm not so worried about because I know that's where I'm going to cut out the die. And so if the center wasn't exactly cut, and you're going to see here when I heat emboss it that it's going to kind of mess up a little bit, I'm not really concerned about that. It's not worth me going back and completely redoing my panel because I'm going to be die cutting it anyway. So here is the white alabaster embossing powder, and I use a I use a coffee filter to catch my embossing powders. I know several people use just a sheet of scrap paper that's laying around. Sometimes people use printer paper. I just find the easiest for me is to use a coffee filter. They're inexpensive, and I can use them several times, and then I just throw them away once they get too messed up, or sometimes if I use a black embossing powder, I won't reuse that again. So you can see there, I love this background stamp. This is so fun, and there's so many things you could do with this. So one of the first ideas I thought about doing was stamping this out just on white cardstock and embossing it, and then going in and coloring the recipient's age, just those numbers. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this background. It's so fun. You could use it for an anniversary, birthdays. You could use it for a graduation. You could the numbers for the graduation year. So if you don't have this background stamp in your stash, I highly recommend it. It's so versatile. So I'm just using my Wagner heat tool to heat set it, and you'll see right there where I'm heating right now, it's almost like the powder kind of disappeared on me, and I've watched the video a couple times to figure out what did I hit it on, and I'm not really sure what happened there, But like I said, it's okay because I'm going to die cut it and you are never going to know that that area is there. So I am using my Nuvo brush, and I love this thing, just to kind of wipe away any excess material or any excess embossing powder. And I'm positioning my die, and I decided I wanted to position it up towards the top, so I had the bottom to put my sentiment. And I am using the Happy Birthday or Birthday Brights paper, and this is such a fun paper pad. I'm a sucker for birthday stamps, dies, paper pads, anything bright I love. And I think they're so versatile too. And in this paper pad, it's really cool. You'll see here in a moment. They actually have paper that is the same pattern as that number jumble background stamp. And they've got it in different colors. And I actually had thought about using one of those, but I decided to keep it a little more simple. So I picked out some pattern that says Happy Birthday continuously, and it's in rainbows. And when I die cut, you'll see over there on the right-hand side, you want to make sure if you're filling it in like I am here, that you keep those inner pieces. So you can see I'm putting the A down, and I will be honest, I don't know why it took me a minute to figure this out, the easiest way to do it. But the easiest way to do this is to take your letter, place it, the outline, so here you can see me do the R here. So I put the R in first, add my glue, and then I know exactly where the little piece needs to go. So I'm going to put my little piece in, and then just pop the R out. And it's in there. And there are several ways you can do this. This is just what seemed to be the simplest for me. Another thing you could do is to just put your dotted glue and then pull it up and then put your piece on. It's whatever works best for you. So here I'm doing the B, and you do want to make sure you go through and add these because you can see the difference. I've done the A and the two P's at this point, the D. So you want to make sure you keep those because it does make a huge difference in being able to read the die and see what it says. So I'm just going through and adding in the B, and then I'm going to peel back the actual outline of the B. And then I have my centers in there, and I'm just using a liquid glue. I believe I was using the Fawn liquid glue. I interchanged the Fawn with the Gina K. They both seem to work about the same, and I know MFT has a liquid glue as well. So I'm taking that same glue tube and just going around and putting dots, and this is definitely sped up. It took me a lot longer because I wanted to make sure that all these little pieces that were tiny and thin were all glued down really well. I didn't want it to come out of the card and catch on the envelope and have any of that rip apart. So I'm just lining back up where I put those inner pieces and gluing down my panel. So the only thing left really is to put the sentiment on. This is such a simple card, and you could change up the colors. You could mass produce this really simply, almost in like assembly line style. There's no coloring involved, and for me when I do cards, coloring is sometimes the most enjoyable, but it takes the longest. It's what's the most time consuming. So this is something that you could do very simply and make a bunch of birthday cards together. So I am using some 3M foam tape. I decided I wanted it to have a little bit of dimension on the card base. And you'll see I also took another piece of paper from the Birthday Brights and added it down to my card base. And I cut down my panel so it'll have a little bit of a border to have some more of that bright. And I believe the pattern I used there was just a dot pattern. So I'm just going to adhere my panel down, make sure it's straight, which I am awful at. If they can invent a foolproof way to line your panels up, I would pay whatever amount of money they wanted for it. It's like the Misti tool. It was such a game changer for stamping. So now I'm using the Bitty Birthday Wishes, and I love these sentiments. MFT has so many great sentiment stamp sets, and they're loaded with sentiments. I mean, you can see how many you get there. They have a Bitty Birthday. I think they have a Bitty Essentials. There are tons of different Bitty sentiment stamps that they have. and they're all a great kind of mix that would work for anybody. So I am stamping this out, and I am just using Versamark ink, VersaFine black ink. And I am stamping that on a piece of peacock cardstock from Fawn. And I am using an MFT fishtail banner die to cut this out. And these dies are probably some of the dies that I use the most in my craft room. I love these because I also cannot cut a banner in the end of a sentiment strip to save my life. One side always ends up longer. And I've watched videos on it, and so these just, they take the frustration out of the craft room. I'm sure many of you know what I'm talking about. Because there's nothing worse than sitting down to make a card to kind of get away from everything that's going on in your life, and then you're frustrated because you can't cut a fishtail or you can't line something up straight. So these just help to make it a little bit more enjoyable. So I'm just using some foam tape to pop that up. And I had thought about cutting off and kind of moving it over to the left, but it was almost the perfect size to fit right up under the die. And so I went ahead and just left it, and I'm glad I did. I like the way it came out. And there's our finished card. So simple. If you enjoyed this card and you'd like to check out the products, I will have them all linked below. If you're not a subscriber, I hope that you'll consider subscribing to catch future videos. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thank you and have a great day.